Right. One of the questions I tell our clients to be prepared for is to be prepared for the question of how do you spend your typical day? And you'd be shocked by how many people will say, I don't do anything.
Yeah.
And and it and just because, we're professionally friendly with most of the judges, that when clients answer, I don't do anything, it drives them crazy.
Right.
Because
Because you do things.
you're doing something. You're going to the restroom. You might be sitting on the couch watching TV all day. You might be laying in bed watching TV all day. But that's something,
That's
So,
important to know. Yeah.
and that's what they want to know. So if you just say, I'm not doing anything, I don't do anything, it doesn't give them any information. Good morning, Isabella. How are you?
I'm good, Peter. It's good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So for those who don't know you, your name is Isabella Baez. You're an attorney who works for our firm at Evans Disability. You help our clients in federal court and you help our clients at hearings as well, but really focused on United States District Court and federal court. So, and I'll link to your interview bio below for those who might want to learn a little bit more about you and what you do for the firm.
Right.
But today I want to talk about ADLs and activities of daily living and sort of how they can affect what are they? Social Security uses a lot of acronyms.
Yes.
And so just learning them, and for for people who are not represented, maybe going for Social Security disability, they may hear this term ADLs, which stands for activities of daily living, and trying to understand, why is it so important about my activities of daily living? Why am I getting all these questions about that? And it's something I know that you're really familiar with, especially at the federal court level, where it comes up all the time. So why don't we start with, what are ADLs?
Sure. So ADLs, like you said, are activities of daily living. They focus on an applicant's self-care abilities. So things such as grooming, hygiene, preparing meals, using public transport, things like that. And the reason why they're so important for disability application is because SSA and DDS kind of evaluate the extent to which someone is capable of doing these sorts of activities independently of supervision or any sort of direction from anyone else. And so basically it comes up in quite a few areas along the journey of the disability application for SSA to kind of look into whether you're able to, at what extent you're able to do these daily living activities independently.
So how did it come up? Let's just start at the application level.
Sure. So some places that you're going to see this is in the forms that you have to fill out for Social Security. And the biggest one is basically your functioning report. And that comes up right at the application level. And you have to basically kind of fill out exactly what we were talking about, those activities of daily living. Like, they'll ask you specific questions. Are you able to groom yourself, without any assistance? Are you able to go shopping by yourself? Are you able to do things like take a shower and a bath without any assistance as well, or any accommodations? So there's a pretty lengthy form that comes up and kind of asks you through that in the application period. So that's kind of the first big way that the ADLs comes up that you're going to see.
Right. Well, that form is called the Adult Function Report form.
Correct.
I've actually done about an hour-long video specifically just that form.
Right.
And instructions, or tips, I should say, on how to fill that out.
Right.
And kind of what I want to talk about just kind of generally before we deep dive into ADLs too much is, a lot of people will say, hey, look, Mr. Evans, you said that Social Security disability is about whether you can work or not. And why are they asking me about cooking and cleaning, and if I can do the dishes or do yard work or watch it, my grandkids or my kids.
Right.
And it's because, generally speaking, people who are going for Social Security disability, they're not working. And so I guess in the simplest way I try to explain it is Social Security is trying to make sure that the way you're living your life is consistent with being disabled. So if you're there saying, look, I have a ton of back pain, we can't compare that to because you're showing up to a job and how you're performing work. But what Social Security will say is, if you're in so much of pain where it's causing you to be disabled and you can't work, how are you able to lift your 35-pound 5-year-old, or how are you able to garden for all day, or how are you able to go to the gym and get prepared for the marathon? So
Right.
I guess you wouldn't do that at a gym, but you get the point. So
Right. Yeah. And, it all kind of goes into what you're really speaking about is your residual functioning capacity, which is exactly kind of how Social Security kind of categorizes exactly how you live your life and what you're capable of doing, what your limitations are. And so, yeah, if you're not working, then it's exactly what you're saying is, are you able to cook for yourself? Are you able to clean for yourself? All things like that. So that's kind of how it kind of trickles through the process as well. You'll see it every level: application, reconsideration, these kind of decisions that come back that will categorize your residual functioning capacity based on these activities of daily living.
right. And then I would also say that with adult functioning, your ADLs, one thing to really start to think about when you're attacking these forms, because at some point someone's going to ask you, is, especially on the physical level, what is your ability to sit, stand, walk, and live?
Right.
And it's not a question that we often think about. Generally, most people aren't thinking about, gosh, how long can I sit before I need to stand up? Or how far can I walk in city blocks before I need to stop and rest? And how much weight can I lift without triggering more pain? And so those are the types of things that I think most claimants need to start contemplating and really thinking through. And I'll put the link to the adult functioning report down at the bottom, but I think it gives a lot of good tips, because we talk about being specific. Can you do that? And if you just say, yes, I can do the dishes, it doesn't tell Social Security what's going on with you. So you got to be specific. Yes, I can do the dishes, but I can do it for 5 minutes. Then I have to sit and rest, and it triggers pain, or I have to lay down. I have to rest for 10 minutes, things like that. So I'm sorry, I kind of jumped in here a little bit more than I had planned, but talk to me about ADLs and, kind of throughout the case we talked about application, reconsideration hearing, even in federal court, maybe.
Sure. So, one other place that they really prop up is some examinations that you'll go through. So there's what's called consultative examinations, and you may have another video on this. However, those are examinations where you'll go into a doctor who was hired by Social Security, who's supposed to be, kind of a third party. And they'll measure your residual functioning capacity for purposes of this disability application. And they'll go through, your activities of daily living with you as well. So basically any kind of examination that you're in, whether it's mental or physical, it's going to affect, how DDS and SSA sees your overall residual functioning capacity based on these questions that the doctors ask you as well. So kind of on the physical side, you can kind of see things like grooming and hygiene. That might kind of fall into exactly what you're saying with kind of being able to stand or sit or walk. Sometimes you have to groom and hygiene, in the shower, in the bath, and you kind of say I'm able to stand up in the shower for only 5 minutes before I have to sit down and kind of use the shower bench. You know what I mean? So it's kind of very, very important, like you were saying, to be specific about exactly how you do things in the home. And like you said too, like you really don't think about these sort of things that, you've accommodated over time, kind of as your disabilities have progressed. You don't think about those things, but these are exactly the type of things that we want to parse out to SSA, to hearing judges, to kind of like the evaluators, is to say, this is how I do my life, and I don't really think about it, but you kind of have to explain all of the accommodations that you do in order to be successful on a disability claim. So as for kind of some mental sides of things, if you take that same example, Peter, of grooming and hygiene, you can also kind of see that as, in a functional category of being able to adapt or manage yourself. It can also include kind of interacting with others, if you have to have assistance with your grooming and hygiene or even cleaning. And then obviously, doing anything kind of grooming, cleaning, shopping requires some concentration. You got to look at your list. You got to know, step 1, 2, and 3 of doing a task, like going into the grocery store, picking up something from the list, going to, the cashier. These are all things that relate to your ability to kind of do work, right? So it kind of trickles into your activities of daily living, and that's how that works.
Right. In the mental category, when they talk about a certain diagnosis, one of the things they look at, if you're going to meet a listing, is the B criteria. And I don't want to deep dive into the B criteria too much, but one of the things is they talk about those 4 categories that you have to be either marked, in I think it's 2 of the 4, and that's pretty directly related to overall functioning, like your ability to focus, concentrate, your activities of daily living. They also talk about decompensation, things like that, and we could do a whole nother podcast just on the listings, and probably specifically even mental health listings. But what about at the hearing level? Where do you see activities of daily living where clients will have to address it at the hearing level?
Sure. So at your actual hearing in front of an administrative law judge, whether you're with an attorney or not, the judge usually asks you these specific questions, and it'll usually come up during the questioning where the judge, has kind of gone through your past work and then kind of gets into, okay, can you tell me in your own words why you're not able to work? Do you have any difficulties with doing chores? Is a really, really common question. And like you were saying, if you just say yes or no, it doesn't really give the judge a lot of detail into your personal life and kind of any difficulties that you might have. So, for example, the chores, which is a really common question coming from either a judge or if you do have an attorney at your hearing with you. A really great thing to kind of be prepared for is to know exactly how you do your chores at home. Are you able to kind of do your chores all at once, or do you need to stop and take a break and rest? Do you have specific accommodated things in your house? Do you have grab bars that you use or a grabber that you use while you're doing your chores? Do you have stools for doing laundry so that you don't have to bend over as much? So these are all things that you really should be thinking about in doing things like chores and things around the house, yard work. Those are what activities of daily living truly are.
Right. One of the questions I tell our clients to be prepared for is, how do you spend your typical day? And you'd be shocked by how many people will say, I don't do anything.
Yeah.
And just because, we're professionally friendly with most of the judges, that when clients answer, I don't do anything, it drives them crazy.
Right.
Because
you do things.
You're doing something. You're going to the restroom. You might be sitting on the couch watching TV all day. You might be laying in bed watching TV all day. But that's something.
That's so. No, yeah.
And that's what they want to know. So if you just say, I'm not doing anything, I don't do anything, it doesn't give them any information. So, be prepared. If you're going to go into a hearing without a lawyer, and we have a mock hearing video on our YouTube channel too, but I'll go ahead and link in the description below. But one, it's very important to be prepared for, because most lawyers who do this a lot, like we do, we can predict like 90% of the questions that are coming in a hearing. And then, we presented that in a mock hearing video. But, if you're with someone or you're going to go at this by yourself, those are the types of questions you can be prepared for, is like, how do you spend your typical day? And it's literally like looking at a book that has like time slots and just writing out, I wake up at 8:30 a.m. and take my medicine. Then I go lay down for 45 minutes. I get up and I make breakfast for 10 minutes, and then I'll eat for 10 minutes, and then I'm tired and I go sleep for an hour. Then I get up, and just literally walk them through your day.
Right, right. I suggest that for my clients too, Peter, and especially what you're saying, like if you need to wake up and then your body is tired, you need to go back and lay in bed for a bit. That's something that the judge needs to know, right? Exactly, because you aren't working, exactly how your day is going, and kind of go through all of these little accommodations that you do for yourself that you don't normally think about.
Right. How about at the federal court level? How do they come up with ADLs, and you're needing to address those in briefs in front of federal judges?
Sure. So once you kind of get through the hearing level, if you get denied, you'll get a really long decision. That's about 25 to 30 pages from the judge. It's written, and goes through all of your medical opinions, goes through all of your testimony, and they actually look at all of your activities of daily living and can sometimes use those against you to undermine your credibility, undermine kind of a persuasiveness of a medical, like doctor's opinion, based on the fact that, in the record, it just tends to kind of, if you tell your doctor or you tell your counselor, I went on a trip, to Florida, had to, fly there, but you're also alleging that you have severe anxiety being around people. So it's kind of things like those types of activities of daily living, where in federal court, we'll basically have to argue, okay, is there anywhere else in your testimony, anywhere, whether it be those forms or whether, it's testimony from your actual hearing in front of the judge, did you explain exactly how you went on this trip? Did you have to take a bunch of medication to help with your anxiety? Did you even make it to your destination? What happened the next day? Were you totally out for the count because you had to recoup, your kind of emotional kind of energy, things like that. So those are types of appealable issues that I'm able to take into the United States District Court if a judge basically kind of tries to undermine your credibility based on some of these activities of daily living that you're doing that might not be fully explained.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think, and maybe you could speak to, because there is case law out there, and this is talking about ADLs and how they affect a claim. On one hand, we're saying, hey, be very clear and precise about how you live your life. And we're saying like, and even the examples we're giving, it's like, you can wash the dishes for 5 minutes, or maybe you lay down for, take your medications and then have to go lay down. But just because you do the dishes, and just because you do go on that one vacation or two vacations or however many vacations, and just because you do household chores, doesn't mean you're not disabled, right?
Correct.
Like, and case law actually says that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's actually, case law out there. We're in the Ninth Circuit, but if, you're looking nationally, this is a national thing, where, district court judges have held, and Ninth Circuit court judges have held that you don't have to be vegetating in a dark room to be found disabled. And, these judges who, can sometimes write pretty scathing decisions, kind of really, really picking at some of the things that you do, either, if it's just like you talk to your friends online while you're also, kind of alleging this anxiety and social anxiety and depression. How are you able to do those things? But, there is case law out there saying, you don't basically have to be completely incapacitated. You can still try to go out and live your life with a disability, and that shouldn't have such a big impact on your disability claim just because you go out and try to kind of lead a normal life, and so the biggest thing, again, is just to explain those accommodations, and that's the biggest thing that'll get you some success on winning an appealable issue like that.
Right. It's this unique sort of trifecta with Social Security. So first, they want to hear from you what you believe and how you are living your life, what you believe your limits are in your functioning, the sitting, standing, walking, and lifting. Then they want to compare that to how you're living your life, right? So that's one cornerstone. Then they want to look at your medical records. Is the way you're explaining your life, is that seem consistent with what I'm reading in the medical records? Meaning,
Right.
You're saying you're in a ton of back pain, but I don't see any back treatment here, so that would be inconsistent. So if you're going to say back pain is your thing that keeps you from working, then you need to go get treatment for it. The second thing, so that's the kind of the other cornerstone. And then the third cornerstone is if you can even get your doctor on board to kind of say, hey, look, these are the limitations of my client's ADLs. And that, if you can get a doctor's opinion, which we, try to always reach out to supporting doctors and get their opinions.
Right.
That kind of trifecta, if all of those three things are in line, you should be able to win your Social Security disability case.
Right. Yeah. And that was kind of going back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, kind of where do these ADLs come into the disability process? And that's another one, is that we will send out, or you should try to send out those specific residual functioning capacity forms to your doctor that will have these specific questions on them about, grooming, cleaning, things like that. Do you think that your, patient can concentrate and persist with pace for a certain amount of time, and it goes exactly to your ability to work or not?
Right. Well, this is great information. Thank you. Is there anything else that we forgot to talk about with ADLs? I'm sure we could probably go on and on. And give examples.
Go on and on. Yeah, we could go on for a while here, but I'm not thinking of anything off the top of my head.
Well, you know what? Thank you so much, Izzy. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you getting prepared for today's podcast, and sitting down and talking to you is always my pleasure.
Same here. It's great to see you, Peter.
You too.